We usually think of tech careers as this perfect straight line, right? You learn to code, you build some systems, become a senior developer, and so on. But what actually happens when the building part is suddenly taken away? Today's explainer dives into an incredible story about pivoting from building systems to connecting them. It's all about how one totally unexpected task completely redefined what it means to be a top-tier IT professional. Picture this. You're starting a massive new system development project. You're completely geared up, your team is ready to go, and then it hits you. Wait, I'm not building an application this time? That was the exact internal monologue the author of our source material had when this big project kicked off. His department, which normally handled all the heavy-duty application development, actually didn't have much of a role in the initial build. And why is that? Well, because the system was already built.
It's just this classic clash between expectation and reality. The expectation, of course, was designing the architecture and writing the code entirely from scratch. But the reality? It was taking this existing, fully developed system and trying to figure out how to adapt it to a highly specific Japanese business environment. Now, it sounds super simple on paper, right? Just plug and play. But as any seasoned IT professional listening to this knows, it is literally never that simple.
Which brings us to the first big hurdle, the interface problem.
So the interface problem is essentially the friction and all those mandatory modifications that pop up when you drop a completely new system into an existing environment. Even if your new software is absolutely flawless, legacy systems usually react by saying, "Whoa, wait a minute, we have no idea how to talk to this thing." Naturally, you'd assume this demands a massive amount of custom coding to bridge that gap.
But here is where the story takes a really interesting turn. The author's department totally assumed they'd have to build out all these new applications just to fix this interface problem. However, as they really dug into the new system, they realized it possessed extensive flexibility. I mean, its configuration capabilities were incredible, allowing for massive adjustments just by tweaking basic settings. And on top of that, the business side actually went ahead and redesigned their own internal processes to match the new software. So because of this incredible dual flexibility, actual custom application development wasn't needed at all.
So that leaves us with a pretty fascinating dilemma. How do you contribute when you can't code? Like when your primary skill is suddenly sidelined by a highly configurable system, what exactly is your next move? By the way, if you've ever had to suddenly pivot your skills on a project like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like this explainer so we can keep bringing you these deep dives. All right, let's see how our engineer actually solved this puzzle.
This leads us directly to a really cool concept: translation as a superpower.
The author had this aha moment. They realized that their unique value for this specific project wasn't going to be writing lines of code. Instead, it was about leveraging two very specific skills they had built up over the years: English language proficiency and deep systems knowledge. It's a remarkably powerful combination. It basically meant they could read complex English documentation and actually understand the underlying system specifications. They were translating not just the raw words, but the deep technical meaning behind them for the Japanese team. And before long, the main task for this highly seasoned developer had become translation. And we aren't talking about firing off a quick email or writing up a 5-page summary here. The author was assigned literally hundreds of pages of dense English system documentation to translate into Japanese. Now, let's be real. For a lot of developers, being handed a mountain of administrative-style translation work would feel like a huge demotion, or at best, an absolute ordeal.
But the author's reaction? Hundreds of pages of translation? Bring it on. I absolutely love this mindset shift. They chose to reframe this seemingly mundane task into a powerful vehicle for technical learning. Think about it. To translate complex architecture properly, you can't just run it through a machine translator and call it a day. You have to genuinely understand how the system functions on a molecular level.
This created an incredibly effective learning loop. Just look at the process. By reading the English documentation, they were forced to truly understand the underlying system specifications. Translating that knowledge into Japanese wasn't just mindless data entry, it was the mechanism for gaining deep structural mastery. The translation process itself essentially became this ultimate masterclass in the new system's architecture.
And that perfectly sets up our final big idea: going beyond full stack.
In the tech world, being a full-stack developer, someone who can handle both the front-end user interface and the back-end database, is pretty much seen as the gold standard. But this experience pushes that definition even further.
Going beyond full stack means evolving from someone who simply builds to a professional who can genuinely understand complex systems, seamlessly connect technology with business needs, and communicate all of this fluently across language and cultural barriers. It's a total shift from just being a builder to being a critical connector.
By embracing this massive translation task, the author didn't step away from their technical career at all. They actually took their first real step toward becoming a truly indispensable tech professional. They evolved from someone who just builds to someone who understands, connects, and communicates. As they enthusiastically noted in the source text, "I can do it! I'll take the first step tomorrow." It just goes to show that the work in front of you, whatever it happens to be, is always an opportunity to grow.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over. What unexpected task could be the key to your next big career leap? Sometimes the biggest opportunities for growth don't look like promotions or exciting new coding assignments. Sometimes they look like hundreds of pages of documentation just waiting to be understood. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I challenge you to look for the hidden value in your own unexpected assignments this week.